Welcome back to Salaxley TV. I'm Mohammed. Today we are joined by Katie Wilson, a candidate for mayor of Seattle. Katie has spent years organizing around transit housing workers' rights. She's now running to lead the city. We'll talk about her plans for Seattle. Also get to know more about the person behind the campaign. Katie, thank you for coming.
Great to be here.
And you study on physics and philosophy at Oxford. How do those studies influence the way you solve the problem today?
That's a great question. Yeah, I did study physics and philosophy. I would say that studying philosophy gave me kind of habits of thought and reflection that I think are very important, and critical thinking, right? Don't take anything at face value. And I think that informs how I listen and how I try to understand where people are coming from, and how I try to collaborate to come up with solutions. Physics, science, I love math, I love numbers, and I've done a lot of work over the years on the city budget, and I'm not afraid to dig in and get my hands dirty with understanding how the city is raising money and what we're doing with it. And I think with both of those subjects, it's really about having a curiosity about how the world works, wanting to get to the bottom of things, wanting to understand what makes things work. And I think I bring that curiosity to my approach to politics and governing. I really want to understand how the city works and how we can make it work better.
And homelessness is in everybody's mind. If you're elected, what's the first step will you take to get the people off the street?
Yeah. Homelessness is a very complex issue, but it's also simple, right? People need somewhere inside to be. They need housing. They need shelter. And one of my big disappointments about how the current mayor's administration has been failing to address the homelessness crisis is that they're putting absolutely no emphasis on getting people inside. We're spending tens of millions of dollars a year moving people around the city, sweeping encampments, but not meaningfully offering people shelter and the services that they need to be successful there. So as mayor, it will be an extremely high priority for me to open new emergency housing and shelter and to actually get people inside, because we know it's not working. I've talked to people in neighborhoods around the city where there's an encampment in a park or in a business district, and they know the city is going to come and sweep that encampment, but they also know that the people will be back because they have nowhere else to go. So we need to do better, and part of that is opening new shelter.
And housing costs keep going up. How do you plan to make the Seattle a place regular people can still afford to live?
Yeah, this is so important, and this is really one of the core reasons why I got into this race, right? I'm a renter myself. I live with my husband and our toddler in an apartment, right? A 650 square foot apartment, and it's really expensive. And I think that for so many working families, the cost of living in Seattle, from housing to childcare, is just so out of reach. So we need to tackle this. There's not just one solution. There's a bunch of things that we need to do better to make it more affordable to live in the city. One of those is social housing. And this is a reason why I got into this race, that in February, Seattle voters overwhelmingly passed a funding measure for our new social housing developer. And unfortunately, the current mayor didn't just oppose it, he was kind of the face of the opposition campaign. So I, as mayor, will make it a high priority to work with our new social housing developer to make that work. And this is mixed income, publicly owned, permanently affordable housing. And I think another thing that we need to do is put more of an emphasis on building family-sized housing. This is something about, we invest a lot of money in building affordable housing in this city, but often there's this emphasis on building the maximum number of units. And that means we end up building a lot of small studio apartments. And families need to live in the city. That means we need 2 bedrooms, 3 bedroom apartments. And that can be hard to finance, but we need to figure that out, or else families are going to keep moving away from the city or even become homeless. So we need more family-sized units. We also need to invest more in affordable homeownership programs, because right now the cost of buying a home is so out of reach that, again, people end up moving out of the city. So as mayor, I would like to do all those things, and also look at stronger protections for renters, because as a renter myself, I know that we all deserve housing stability, whether we rent or we own.
As co-founder of the Trans Rider Union, what was your proudest organizing win, and how will you bring that experience to the City Hall?
Yeah, this is can I have 2? Okay. Yeah. So one, back in 2015, I had the honor with the Transit Riders Union to work with and to support students at Rainier Beach High School to win free transit for students in Seattle. And this was a campaign that was led by youth, specifically by several young Black women at Rainier Beach High School who really took the lead. And they organized events, they talked to the media, and together we won, right? We helped them navigate City Hall, and their victory spread. And now we have free transit for youth all across Washington State, and it started right there at Rainier Beach High School. Another effort that I'm very proud of is in 2022, I and the Transit Riders Union built a coalition in Tukwila to raise the minimum wage. And we did so much outreach and talking with workers at South Center Mall, at other businesses around Tukwila, to small businesses, to community organizations, including to the Somali community. And we built this amazing coalition, this amazing diverse coalition, and gathered signatures, put a measure on the ballot, knocked on thousands of doors, and we ended up winning at the ballot with 83% of the vote, which just showed this immense support for workers making a living wage. And I think in both of those campaigns, what I'm so proud of about them was that it's a team effort, right? And it's really about building that coalition, listening, bringing communities together, communities that don't always interact with each other on a daily basis, right? But then finding that common ground, finding solutions, and then achieving them together.
On your side, you talk about Trump-proof Seattle. What does that mean for everyday people here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, part of what that means is that we need to come up with the funding here locally and in our state to make sure that as Trump and the federal government cut programs that people depend on, that we are making people whole, that we are not letting people fall through the cracks. So if people are losing their Medicaid coverage, if people are losing their SNAP benefits, if people are losing their housing because of cuts to HUD funding, we need to make sure that people are not going hungry, that people are not going without health care, that people are not becoming homeless. It also means that we need to protect immigrant communities, and that means working hand in hand with community organizations rooted in immigrant communities and supporting the work that they're doing, making sure that people don't have to go to immigration hearings alone, making sure that we have that rapid response network that can support people and their families if someone does get detained. And I've been looking at things that some cities around the country are doing to protect immigrant communities that we're not doing yet here, right? Boston and LA, they're routinely filing FOIA requests to get information, transparency around who ICE is detaining and why. Some cities have instructed their police departments to intervene in unlawful ICE operations, making sure that people's civil rights and due process are being protected. So we need to do that here, and we need to make sure that we are standing together and protecting people in every way that we can, through the courts, through the actions of our law enforcement, make sure that they are not assisting ICE, and because it is our first duty to keep people safe.
And traffic and buses can be a nightmare in the city. What's your plan to make the getting around easier?
Great question. And I would say, before talking about transportation per se, part of the answer is really housing, right? Because part of the reason why we have so many cars on the street, why we have people needing to drive around, is that we can't afford to live near where we work, right? So the more that we can build affordable housing and make it possible for people to live in the neighborhoods where they work, the less people are going to have to commute in from Kent to work at a downtown job as a security officer or a janitor. But in terms of transportation per se, I think I'm a big advocate for public transit, and I believe that we need to build a true mass transit system with fast, efficient buses and trains. And this isn't just for the people who ride public transit. It's for everyone, because even if you're someone who has to drive or wants to drive, the fact is that Seattle is a growing city, and people will continue moving here from all over the world, and we need to accommodate that growth. And so if the people who need to drive, in order for them to be able to drive, we need more of the people coming here to be able to live here without driving all the time and even without owning a car. So better public transit is a big part of the answer.
And public safety is a hot topic. How will you balance safety with the fair policing
Sorry. Yeah, so, as I've been talking with folks around the city in the course of this campaign, in neighborhoods around the city, different communities, it's clear that public safety is a top issue on many people's minds, and for good reason. If you look at our crime trends over the last few years, we've had more violent crime than the national trends. And also related to our homelessness crisis, there's a lot of property crime and also just a lot of public disorder, right? People doing drugs, dealing drugs, selling items illegally. And there's a lot of neighborhoods where people walk around and they don't feel safe. So we need to do better. Part of this is meaningfully addressing our homelessness crisis and making sure that we don't have folks sleeping unsheltered who also don't have their basic needs being met and who might be struggling with a drug addiction, because people in that situation end up breaking laws out of desperation. So we need to do better on that. We also need to make sure that we are using our police force effectively. And one thing that I've heard as I've been talking with people in different neighborhoods is that often we don't have that consistent police presence where, ideally we're hiring officers from within the neighborhoods that they're serving in. They have relationships with the community, with small business owners, with nonprofits, and they're able to really work with folks in the community and take a problem-solving approach to crimes or other issues in their neighborhood. We need to move toward that community policing model so that we can get that real neighborhood level public safety across the city.
And a lot of families say that's too expensive to raise kids in Seattle. How will you help with the childcare and basic costs?
Great question. This is personal for me as the mother of a young child. And, before I started running this campaign, my husband and I were just taking care of our daughter and multitasking because it was so expensive to put her in childcare. And then when I decided to run for office, we realized we really needed childcare. So now we're paying $2,200 a month for childcare, and it's very hard. The city needs to do more to make childcare affordable for families, and we also need to do more to make it easier for people who want to start a childcare facility, whether that's in their home or a childcare center, to start up those facilities. Because there's also, even if you can afford it, it is very hard to find childcare in your neighborhood. So as mayor, I'm going to convene a Blue Ribbon Commission of experts, people in the community, to really figure out how we can create this roadmap that supports parents and supports children over the whole arc of a person's childhood. Because it's not just that very young childcare for very young children. It's also once you get to school age, right? And then in the summer, school lets out. If you're a working parent, what are you supposed to do if you can't afford thousands of dollars over the summer to put your child in care or summer camp? So we really need to step up and do more. The city can't do it alone, so this is also about working at the state level, because it's not just a problem in Seattle, but we need to do better for families, because right now people can't afford it. And
you proposed $1 billion bond for Union Bill housing. What safeguard will you make sure taxpayers' money is spent transparent and effectively?
Yeah, great question. And in general, good governance and making sure that we are spending our public money effectively and efficiently is very important to me, because I think it's very bad when people start to lose faith in the ability of their government to actually deliver for them and to spend money well. So in terms of building housing, we need to make sure that if we're raising a large sum of money, and part of the idea behind this bonding idea is that if we're investing this in social housing, this isn't actually tax money necessarily. It could be a revenue bond where you're bonding against future rents. But we need to make sure that we are working with community to figure out where to put this housing and make sure that this housing is actually serving communities, and make sure that people know of the opportunity to apply to live in this housing, just make sure that it's really doing its job. I mean, one program that I really support strongly is the Equitable Development Initiative, which partners with communities at risk of displacement around Seattle, including immigrant communities, to build not just housing, but community centers and other assets that can help to keep communities rooted in place. And I believe very strongly that the city should be funding that program.
Climate action is the key for you, and how will you make sure green investment also neighborhood has been left behind, would help the neighborhood left behind?
Yeah, unfortunately, Seattle is very far from on track with our climate goals, but there's a number of aspects to how we make investments in climate resilience. And, there are neighborhoods around the city which don't have a lot of tree cover. And in the summer, when it's very hot, there can be heat islands. So I do think that the city needs to do more to make sure that we are planting and caring for trees, especially in neighborhoods that don't have enough greenery. And also that we're assisting people as we do have these heat waves, as we're feeling the effects of climate change. Can the city help to help people to install, heat pumps that double as air conditioners, right? And make sure that people have safe places to go when we have wildfire smoke. So there's a lot of aspects to the climate crisis that we need to make sure that people here are safe, and that we're investing in the communities that are most at risk of feeling the impacts of climate change.
And Seattle is hosting part of FIFA World Cup 2026. What legacy do you hope that event leaves for local communities?
Yeah, great question. I'm actually really excited about the World Cup coming. Soccer is kind of my sport. And yeah, I was thinking about this. I mean, certainly there's a lot of money coming to Seattle with the World Cup, right? We're going to have, I think the city's population might kind of almost double temporarily. It's wild, right? Mm-hmm. So one thing is to make sure that when people are coming here and spending their money, that's not all just concentrated in that downtown core. How are we getting people out into the city, into different communities, patronizing small businesses in neighborhoods around the city, and make sure that investment, that wealth really gets spread around, especially to small business owners in communities that might not otherwise get a piece of it. Also, as we're making infrastructure investments for those games, how can we make sure that that's a permanent investment in our city? That this is an opportunity to welcome the whole world to Seattle and also to update the look and feel of our city. So how can we make sure that lasts beyond those few weeks of the games? And another thing I would say is that in the lead up to the games, let's celebrate soccer, right? Mm-hmm. Soccer is people around the world love this game. It's something that anyone can play with just a ball, and maybe more of our parks should have soccer pitches, right? Where kids can go and we can have pickup games. I used to play pickup soccer in Seattle, and I would just love to have the months leading up to the games be a time when young people, old people around Seattle can come out and kick a ball around and really celebrate that.
Beautiful. And on personal note, you also a parent. How do you, being mom, shape your vision for the city future?
I mean, it really, being a mom, I have a 2-year-old, so I haven't been a parent for very long. But it really does change my perspective. It makes me see the city in a new light. It makes me think of safety and traffic safety, right? If I'm walking along the sidewalk with my daughter, I'm just constantly afraid. And it makes me really appreciate our parks, our playgrounds, our community centers, and really want to invest in those. And it really underlines the affordability crisis, because I really want this city to be a place where my daughter can grow up and afford to live here if she wants to. And that's something that feels very out of reach today.
Thank you very much. And Katie Wilson, thank you for sharing your story and ideas with us today. And we appreciate your time and wish you the best for your campaign trail. And also our viewers, thank you for watching Salaxley TV. Stay tuned for more conversation with